Hello and welcome to my Cervelo R3, the bike that I used yesterday to successfully Everest the Cleland Wildlife Park access road. Now I made a video about this bike before I did the Everesting, but I'm not going to put it up because I think it'll be more interesting for you to see it now, because as you can see, it is absolutely disgustingly filthy. And the reason for that is it was very wet at the top of Mount Lofty. The mist just rolled in and we were basically riding through clouds for most of the Everesting, and we got absolutely soaked and we got absolutely filthy and all of our gear got absolutely filthy. So yeah, pretty bloody epic day out. The conditions were just terrible. So now you've seen that, I'll actually talk about the bike and sort of why it was good for Everesting. The first thing is it's a 2012 R3 Cervelo. It's a bike I've had for a couple of years, done a lot of Ks on it. It's been very reliable. Good bike for lots of climbing because it's sort of a pretty relaxed geometry. As you can see, a pretty long head tube there. I run a couple of spaces in there. Not quite slammed, so it's got a nice upright position. Perfect for Everesting because you are going uphill, and also aerodynamics not such a big deal. Now the drivetrain, starting up the front, we have Sram red shifters. Go down here, Sram red front derailleur, a sort of mid-range Sram crank. I can't remember exactly what model it is, but it's not the top of the range. Compacts, chainrings, 50-34. I actually did not use the big chainring at all for the Everesting. Once at the bottom of the climb, I switched onto it by mistake and thought, well, that's pretty dumb. I'm not going to use that, and immediately switched off it again. So yeah, that's ideal gearing for Everesting, is the compacts. Going down the dirty chain. We have the rear, the cassette, which I'm running a 12-32, and that was very necessary because this road that we Everested averaged 11% and had a couple of pitches of about 15%, maybe up to 17%, depending on how much you believe your Garmin. But yeah, very steep road. So really going uphill, I used the 28 briefly and then got onto the 32, and pretty much that was all I used. Did go up the cassette a bit just to give me a little bit on the descent, just to sort of basically kick it off, give me a bit of momentum, but after that I basically let gravity do all the work because you don't want to waste energy on an Everesting. Now this is a Sram Force medium rear derailleur, so it's got a very long cage on it, which is what gives it the clearance to go around the 32. So it's still pretty close there. I actually had to get this fitted when I went with the new 32 tooth, because yeah, a standard Sram red which was on there could only fit a 28 and I wanted a bit more. So yeah, a couple of other things are the accessories that I used. This is a AAA battery powered Tioga dual eyes rear light. I basically used it because you don't need to worry about it. They've got a really long battery life on them, which USB rechargeable batteries didn't have the life that I wanted. I basically wanted a light that I could just turn on and leave on for the entire Everesting, and that was exactly what it did. Turned it on, the really thick fog, it was still very bright, very visible, left it on all night and for all of the portion during the day. And while I'm here, 3T Dorico team seat post came with the bike, perfectly fine. Physique Arione wing flex. It's a good seat, it fits me really well. I sat on it yesterday for the 11.5 hours that I was moving, and my ass is still okay, so that's a pretty good sign. Up the front here I used a set of A-up lights in a very subtle shade of pink. I use A-ups because they're very bright and have a really good battery life. So they run at 700 lumens at maximum output, and lowest output is 300, so I'd use the 700 lumens for going downhill and then switch to the 300 lumens for going up. I went through 2 batteries because yeah, we were in darkness for about the first six and a bit hours, and then I pretty much just had them on flashing after that because it was so insanely foggy and misty that I still did not want to get run over. Now the Garmin that I used is an Edge 800. Because of the terrible conditions, this thing just completely stopped reading. The altimeter basically stopped working because all the moisture gets in and it stops being able to know to sort of work out how what your elevation is. So this basically became a very, very complex lap counter. Thankfully, the 500 that I had in my jersey was fine. Apparently, the atmosphere back there was dry enough for it to work properly. Other than that, Ritchie WCS handlebars, a Pro 90mm stem, and this is the cap that I got after I Everested last time. Yeah, that's right, I've Everested twice, just a little bit of shameless self-promotion. I might do another video about the other bike that I rode for that Everesting. But yeah, thank you for joining me. If you've got any questions or you want to know anything about the Everesting or about the bike... Oh, actually, no, I've forgotten one thing. I'll do that sign off a bit later. The wheels that I rode, Shimano Dura-Ace C24s. And the interesting thing about these was that I noticed during the ride that I was getting less and less braking power. And the reason is this really fine grit that just completely coated me and the bike was getting into the rims, getting into the brake blocks, and it was gradually wearing them down. So I was actually in real time wearing out these rims. These are very, very, very worn on the front and really worn on the back. There's just this huge ridge in there. So I think these rims are actually toast now. And there you go. That's I've spoken to a number of owners of Dura-Ace C24s, and they've all said that they wear very quickly, particularly on the back. And the conditions that I had to Everest in yesterday were just so wet, so filthy that it just took their toll on them. So that's not very good. Other than that, they're a very good wheel. Longevity, not so great. Yeah, so anyway, as I was saying, if you have any questions or any comments, you want to know anything about Everesting or know anything about the bike I used to Everesting, let me know in the comments below. And thank you very much for watching. See you next time.